So we're getting in the midst of it where he says the apologist's message ultimately is nothing less than the whole of Scripture. So unfortunately, you have to read Genesis to Revelation because it's very
That's
important.
right. Yeah, you have a question about Christianity? Okay, well, let me read the whole Bible to you.
Right. Yeah. So if we're reading a message from our significant other, and in there it has descriptions of what to pick up from the store, and making sure that we get the kids on time. If we happen to just yada 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 over something, maybe we have the bread and the milk, but we don't have the kid in the back seat, and so we need to make sure that that it's all there. So we need to use all of Scripture as our message, and it needs to be heard by those who we're apologizing to, that we're providing an answer for the hope that we have. But in an apologetics text such as this one, his book, it is important to provide a brief summary of the content of Scripture to give direction to the apologetic witness. Then he says that for the purposes of the present book, it will be useful to summarize the message of Scripture from two perspectives. First, Christianity as a philosophy, and second, Christianity as good news.
Yeah, right. And so so we have these two perspectives here, right? Christianity as philosophy and as good news. He's going to spend the bulk of this chapter then talking about Christianity as philosophy. Obviously, he's a philosopher, he's a theologian, but he's also a philosopher. And so and the philosophy is going to create the worldview that now we're going to use, right, as comparison with other worldviews. And so he wants to spend some time on philosophy so that we have this worldview in mind as we go through the apologetic enterprise. So he says, by Christianity as philosophy, he says, I mean that Christianity provides a comprehensive view of the world. It gives us an account not only of God, but also of the world that God made, the relation of the world to God, and the place of human beings in the world in relation to nature and God. So again, this whole world perspective of it. And then you have the main, I would think the main three areas of basic philosophy. So if you take an introduction to philosophy class, you'll probably cover these basic three areas. So it discusses metaphysics, that's the theory of the fundamental nature of reality. Epistemology, that's the theory of knowledge, right? What's the nature of knowledge? And of course, values, that has to do with ethics and aesthetics and that sort of thing. And so given these three areas, he says, Christianity as philosophy, it has a viewpoint on everything. And so that's what he wants us to see here.
So kind of metaphysics is what things are, and then epistemology is how we know things, and values are what should we do, or what is the value of the things that we do. So one of the more unfortunate repercussions of America's distorted view of the kind of separation of church and state, which I appreciate his commentary here, is that public school children are able to hear advocacy of every system of thought except those that are arbitrarily labeled as religious. And so we kind of talked about this a little bit in a couple of our past episodes, where you can bring anything you want into it as long as it's not Christianity, because then it makes you religious. But if you're passing laws, then you have to have a tabula rasa of ethics in order to pass laws, because laws aren't inherently ethical statements. Don't murder, don't steal. Those things kind of sound familiar. Don't lie under false pretense and testimony in court. I mean,
what does that have to do with ethics?
Right. Yeah. How dare you trivialize my freedoms for what you want to do here. So who is to say that the truth might not be found in, or even limited to, one of these religious positions? What if the case that Islam is true, would that affect all of reality? I mean, it would. It would definitely, or Hinduism, or the Native American type beliefs, or the kind of the from Hocus Pocus for Kurt Vonnegut, that religious belief system that he writes about there. by saying these answers can't come into the milieu of acceptable ideas to bring to the table. You're possibly decounting the number 4 from your answers of, well, what is 2 plus 2? Well, I mean,
Right.
we can consider other things. We can consider cow and we consider milk and street light, but we definitely can't consider 4 because, I mean, you people that believe in numbers out there. I mean, and show me a number. I can show you a cow, but I can't show you a number. So
Yeah,
for
and
this,
so his point here is this is kind of arbitrary. Leaving religion out is kind of arbitrary
right.
when we're trying to capture knowledge and what the state of things and what reality is all about. And leaving religion out is we're missing something. Is really the point. Saying.
Yeah,
Now,
it's not until recently that we've done this too.
right, yeah. And I mean, people say, well, there's separation of church and state. Well, you can't find that obviously in the Constitution. Constitution talks about the state creating a religion. It has nothing to do with covering or talking about.
Right. From a federal perspective too, you still had the allowance of state, literal state run churches. But yeah,
Right.
it's interesting that separation of church and state is about excessive taxation on the churches won't happen, and so if I could declare myself a church, that would be nice too, to have a separation of church and state there as well.
That's right. Separate me, my taxes from the state.
Right.
Because I'm
That's
religious. So
that's the dream. So he says, further, the extreme separationists often seem to be more opposed to the public expression of Christianity in particular than to religion in general. Don't bring it into the classroom or the courthouse or the state convention, or don't let me hear about it. Don't you definitely can't be on the sidewalk and tell people what they're doing inside of a building with children is wrong. Just it should just be you at home. Even though you say Jesus Christ is Lord, and you go, Lord of what? And you say everything. Okay, then that means the courthouse, the state conventions, the sidewalk, what's happening behind buildings to children, all those things are effective. And so we're discounting these answers that are available to us, and they could be the right ones. And so
right.
bring them to the table.
Right. And so what he does here is he says, we have this separation of church and state, so we can't talk about religion in the schools. And in particular, we can't talk about Christianity, right? He says Christianity is excluded from the schools, even though, or perhaps because it's the only genuine alternative to the conventional wisdom of the modern establishment. And so that's the big point that we're going to see in this particular chapter.
Yeah.
He's going to go over this again and again and again, that out of the various worldviews, perspectives that are out there, Christianity is different, and it's an alternative to what the rest of them have to offer. He says in our time, as opposed to say 600 years ago, people are ignorant of the basic Christian worldview. And so he says it's going to be helpful if they understand, the worldview, so that the gospel will make sense to them. So he wants to present Christianity first as philosophy. And again, he's going to, use the bulk of this chapter to do that. And then at the very end, he's going to look at Christianity as gospel.
Right. And he'll kind of get towards the conclusion of this. It's not philosophy first and then gospel. Philosophy is the gospel, and gospel is the philosophy. So,
right.
So it's not of first importance. Be a philosopher, and then you can present the gospel.
Right.
He'll clarify that point, but what he's going to lay out here is the philosophy first, and then he'll conclude with the gospel.